Two, one. Lewis, we are live. Welcome to This is an IT support group and IT MSP entrepreneurs. A live stream today with head security nerd at Enable, Lewis Pope. We've had Lewis on a few times in the past to chat about security related things, and it's been really exciting and quite educational. Lewis
Yeah,
has taught me a lot.
we usually get on a tangent at some point, but it's a new piece of knowledge you walk away with.
100%. Again, my name is Stetson Blake. I founded This is an IT support group and the ITMSP entrepreneurs group. We try to do these things just about once monthly, and as well as some other events that folks should actually keep their eyes peeled for. But Lewis, could you, enough about me, give just for folks that haven't joined us before, a quick intro of who you are and what you're up to and why we
Yes.
should listen to you.
Why bother to listen to anything I have to say and cut through this accent? I am one of the head nerds at Enable. We're a public facing part of the company. We are responsible for advocacy, education, helping our partners succeed. We are tied to making sure they can do what they want to do with our products, and also not even with our products, help them with the challenge of being an MSP, since most of my team are former MSP individuals. I came from an MSP about 6.5 years ago now. My focus is on security. Other people on my team have different focuses, but me, it's very much the practical implementation of security control. So the everyday in the trenches, how do I do this? How do I use PowerShell to go look for IOCs if you don't have anything other because your logging was disabled or turned off by a threat actor, or you never had logging enabled in the first place. Those I spend a lot of time with a lot of people helping them get through learning the basics and getting them out on the other side of it with actual, not just getting them through it, but getting them onto the other side of it with good lessons learned. So they don't need me. They don't have to come back to me and help say, hey, we've got this situation and we don't know how to handle it. A lot of what I
Yeah.
do is getting you prepped and built up so you can handle
Fantastic. You're the security mercenary is my
it.
nickname. Well, Lewis, this month is, as folks may know, Cybersecurity Awareness Month. I'm not actually sure myself where this came from. Is this like a CISA thing, or is this one of these made up holidays?
So
Why do we do this?
no, it is one of those made up month things, but this one is actually the Cybersecurity Awareness Month. It's actually a joint collaboration between the Department of Homeland Security and the National Cybersecurity Alliance. So private and federal, or nonprofit and federal. Um, and its purpose is to raise general awareness about good cybersecurity practices and hygiene for the general populace and the end users. This is not for the IT professionals. Yes, you will see lots of communications, a lot of comms, a lot of discussions going back and forth between cybersecurity professionals during Cybersecurity Month. But some of it is marketing spin, some of it is clout generation. But the intent and the purpose and the want for Cybersecurity Awareness Month is to raise up the understanding of the basic average end user, because
Totally.
end users are a combination of all things. They are usually sometimes they are your first line of defense, sometimes they are your last line of defense, and oftentimes they are your worst line of defense. So this whole
Love that.
month is about making them better at defending, dealing with their own risk that they represent, and making sure that they're not introducing risk into their businesses. And that's a challenge in of itself. And that's why they're giving us a whole month for it.
100%, or TLDR, keep users from shooting themselves in the foot a
Yeah.
little bit. Well, cool. We'll be a little more technical since our audience is. But Lewis, again, thanks so much for joining us today. I know we have a few different items we were going to chat about, but I think one that's kind of top of mind that folks might have seen already was the current news with Okta and how they were perhaps breached. Could we chat about that a little bit? I know you.
Okta is like the recent event with Okta. I'm not going to go too much into like the full post-mortem of it and everything. That is available. You want it from the source, go read it from the source. But this was a really good example of where proper cybersecurity awareness training should have been implemented based on the roles of an individual. And that'll be something I want to come back to later is yes, cybersecurity awareness training should be different per role. But what happened was somehow or another, somebody from Okta who has access to Okta support was on a call with somebody and provided them with a HAR file of their currently logged in session. So if you're not familiar with HAR files, they are a recording of everything that happened during a web session. And you can generate that very easily from basically any browser gives you that capability. So it was a social engineering attack. They had him on the phone. I need you to, okay, you're logged into your account. Okay, generate a HAR file for me. Give me that HAR file and I can troubleshoot, which is legitimate.
Sure.
That is absolutely a legitimate process for a cloud service, SaaS service, or whatever. You get on the phone with their support, but they'll say, hey, I need you to generate this HAR file of this current session, send it to us so we can use it for troubleshooting. That happens.
Sure.
That in itself is not bad. What this situation was is they handed it over to somebody who didn't need it. It was just a pure social engineering attack. So there's two challenges there. One is the social engineering attack, but then also there was not a proper sanitation process in place. Usually, if you're going to provide HAR files on the regular to a vendor, you want to sanitize those files before you send it. Now, is that a whole other process? Yes, but if you're evaluated at multi-billion dollars, you do that.
Yeah, totally. It's a bad year for Okta as well. I think they just had a breach. I forget if it was a month or two back, but certainly another one I had heard about.
And that's kind of what reading the tea leaves here completely, but that's probably why the reaction to the most recent one was, it didn't help also that there were others, the others that were impacted were also recognizable names. And whenever something happens and it affects one major company that's recognizable in the space, and then all of a sudden they're saying that, but it also impacted these other recognizable names because of it, that gets the attention of a lot of people really fast.
Yeah, totally. I'm sure the media loves dropping all the different names of.
It's great. I mean, it makes the whoever's writing the sizzle reel or the clickbait article for the week, it makes their job a lot easier because they get to slap a bunch of premium names into it and start talking about it, which gets the links.
Totally. And sizzle reel is a new one for me. I'll have to Google that, but I love the terminology.
Oh yeah, sizzle reels so sizzle reels are just the equivalent of I hate to say it this way. I'm showing my age and my internet culture, but YouTube poop videos back in the day. It's just a fast, rapid pace.
Oh, sure.
Things that are just getting your attention. It's
the
same principle. They're starting to do that now with media as well because attention spans have shrunk.
Sure. Well, cool. Enough on kind of Okta and some of these recent breaches. I think that does set the stage for folks a little bit to, kind of know the why of, any company's vulnerable to breaches, even multi-billion-dollar corporations, as I'm sure folks are very well aware if they keep any eyes on just various security blogs. You see this type of stuff all the time. But getting a little deeper into kind of cybersecurity awareness in general, I know, talking about the news and certain vulnerabilities that come out, it's kind of difficult for individuals to keep up with what is happening, and IT professionals especially, Louis. So maybe you could, give some strategies or sources or advice for people to like, how the hell do we keep up with this just deluge of information every day?
So the first thing is you have to ask yourself, well, what do I need to keep up with? That's the first qualifying question. Because if you've done IT a while, or not even if you've done it a while, you're just getting started. But at some point, you're going to ask that question: how do I keep up? And the answer is you do not. It's a fool's errand. You'll be, they'll have to peel you off the wall. You're going to be jacked up with so much caffeine and energy drinks to try and keep up with it all. You just can't. You have to be deliberate and choose based on your role, your company, your responsibility. So if you are a network engineer, you better make sure you know of everything that is in your environment that is that touches your network. And you need to go and subscribe to the bulletins and the security alerts and notifications from those vendors. That's the primary way of knowing, am I affected? Go to your vendors. Well, first it's know who your vendors are of the equipment in the environment, of the software in your environment. Build that out as a list, and that's everything you need to focus on. If you don't have that list, you're already behind, because now you're relying on happenstance of hearing about it, happenstance of seeing a news article about it, and then something clicking in your head to say, oh, maybe I should go look for that in my environment. Because the other, taking it to the extreme in the other direction, is every new vulnerability you hear about, you're going and you're hunting for it in your environments. Not scalable, not an efficient use of your time. Will make you look very busy, but is it producing anything of value for you to expend that kind of time and effort, figuring out how to write a PowerShell script, or how to audit your AD, or how to whatever you're going to do to find that indicator of compromise in your environment for a product or for a tool or for an appliance that's not even in the environment.
Yeah, I think that's an awesome filter. It is very easy to get caught up in some of these different news sources and things where, yeah, you like you said, you just kind of have to back out a little bit and say like,
You do,
wait,
because even if you go to aggregators,
yeah,
you're
is this
you're
relevant to me?
yeah, you're relying on what did they aggregate, what did they pull together. Chances
Sure.
are they aren't monitoring the security alerts and feeds from all of your vendors. There's going to be at least one they're missing, if not multiples. So
Yeah.
while aggregators, and by aggregators, I'm anything in general, take your pick, threat host, any of the professional subscription vulnerability services, heck, even just something like, Bleeping Computer. I've loved them for years, but it's
Yeah.
because sometimes you get notifications through those media channels and those journalist channels faster than you get them from the vendors. So I still have my favorites read list and some RSS feeds that I'll kind of check on here and there. But it's not, if I was in the role of, okay, I'm responsible for an environment, that would not be my primary source. It would be going specifically to.
Totally. Yeah, I think that's a great point too, to just kind of keep the incentives in mind, because while media outlets are great, like their goal is to get clicks and sell ads.
Exactly. Yeah,
So
and they're
I
and they're going to call something absolutely horrible and the worst thing ever, and then you spend, you get that panic phone call, because sometimes you aren't the person that hears it first. It's somebody else in your organization. It's somebody in the C-suite level. It's a customer. It's a client, and they reach out to you in a panic and they say, "Hey, are we safe from this? Do you know about this or not?" And being able to have that, well, no, we are not even affected by it because you got that list, versus, well, now I have to go and do this research and everything, and now they're in a panic, and that's applying pressure.
Sure. Yeah, that brings up a great point too, Lewis. As we talk about some of these folks that, whether they're internal customers to the company you work for, or external, whatever, different audiences, I guess, kind of need um, different education or different
Mhm.
types
They
of
need different types of training and education,
yeah.
and some people, whenever some people hear that, they're just like, well, shouldn't everybody be doing the same training? And it's like, no, no, no. You are not going to spend $50,000 on a defensive driving course for everybody in your company. You do that for your C suites that travel internationally and are actually the subject of potential kidnapping. It makes sense to do that for them. You don't do that down for everybody else. The same thing with cybersecurity awareness training and hygiene training. You're not going to, the training that your high value targets are going to need is going to be different. Whoever in the organization has access to the books, the financials, the bookkeeping, the people that can issue a PO and initiate a wire transfer. Those people are going to need an entirely different level above and beyond just basic cyber hygiene training. That's for everybody. That's for the grunts. That's for the average users that, they've got email access. They got access to the web portal and they have their workflows, but they can't touch the company money. They're going to need a different set of training than those other people. And then up on the C-suite level, the business owner level, they are going to need their own specific training, as well as engineers and IT support. The HAR file is a great example of that.
Yes.
I would never, from the end user experience, your internal documentation and training for your end user employees is, no, you do not do this. This is bad behavior. You should never provide this type of information. This is a responsibility of IT. So that training's there. And then for IT, their training is going to be, of course, well, this is fairly standard practice, but make sure you know who you're communicating with and you verified who you're communicating with through some pre-approved channel of making that decision, and also implementing that HAR file sanitization. So you're cleaning out any session cookies or active anything that a threat actor could actually leverage. And then whenever you get up to the C-suite, well, then they're back down to a little bit of the base level of, okay, no, you don't provide HAR files. You don't ever do this. This is bad behavior. This is bad indicators. You stop what you're doing and you contact IT if anybody ever asks you for this. But then they're going to need they need to know about business email compromise, how that works, how the pig butchering works, how you can be engaged with somebody for weeks or months via email, forming a legitimate business relationship, and then they hit you with I've got enough trust out of you now. Now I can get you to reach down to your subordinate and tell them to do something. And then whenever that happens, you've just blown past the whatever technology defenses you had in place. There is no technology defense against a plain English language email or going to somebody and telling them to carry out an action in meat space.
Yeah.
There's no links. There's no there's no attachments. There's nothing. It's just instructions that the human's going to read and go do. And that's why cybersecurity awareness training is so important, because again, back to the beginning, end users are your first, your last, and often your worst line of defense. And the business email compromise, as much as ransomware makes the headlines, I forgot what the actual numbers were from the FBI report from last year, but the financial losses from business email compromise was like factors higher than losses from ransomware. Now, that said, not all ransomware attacks are reported. There are a lot more that's unaccounted for that would inflate that number, but even then, we're talking billions in business email compromise losses. And it's also the problem of, usually with those business email compromises, they're also individually more costly than the ransomware attacks are, in the sense that you have this large lump of capital going out the door that you can't reclaim, versus ransomware, which is there is that ransom payment, but there's that continual ongoing production damage. So
sure,
while business email compromise attacks might be a cleaner experience for you, it's less damaging to the functions of the business. But a business email compromise is more dangerous because it can just literally suck all the capital out of the business if it's successful.
Yeah, that is excessively scary to think about. I think I found that statistic you were referencing, at least for ransomware. There's some good stats from Internet Crime Complaint Center. This is for 2022. I'm reading that the IC3 received 800,000 reported complaints with losses exceeding $10.3 billion. And of course, Lewis, you were saying that the this is just kind of small in comparison to the other types of
Right.
business email compromises.
Right.
Um,
Because those are the ones where if that happens and it's big enough, we'll never hear about it.
yeah, yeah. I think I
Because
found the other one, business email compromise. I put a link that says the $43 billion scam. Talking about some of the losses here.
yeah, and if you are in the whether you're in the managed services space or your internal IT, if business email compromise isn't something, and this is one of those things where personal philosophy and how I used to run my MSP, I was very comfortable with drawing the line in the sand sometimes and saying, this is your risk. This is not my risk. And getting them to take ownership of that risk. I'm not going to, because again, as the IT person, I can implement a lot of processes, procedures, and technology solutions, but I can't stop you from doing something if you're going to do it. So,
Yeah,
if you don't have a written policy around business email compromise, how to mitigate it, how to remediate it, how to train against it, now's the time.
yeah,
Because if
fantastic.
somebody's not saying that the C suites and the managers carry their own risk burden there, they're just going to continue to assume that IT's got it taken care of. It's IT's problems, and they don't have to practice good behavior themselves.
Totally. And my prediction, Lewis, I'd love to hear where you weigh in, but my prediction is that these types of business email compromises are only going to get worse with like AI being able to
Oh,
allow,
it's
yeah,
yes.
essentially anyone to persuade much better than they may have been able to before.
Well, it's removing. I mean, playing into the stereotypes, but in this situation, you have your profile of threat actors, and a lot of times English speakers are the targets, but the threat actors are not English as a first language speakers, and a
Until
lot of
now.
times, and this removes one of their major impediments and red flags because if you got a business email, you got one of those BEC emails, and you start reading it, and the grammar's off, that raises your suspicion level already, and you're
Sure.
gonna versus if it's natural language and it doesn't. I hate this. I don't want to say uncanny valley, but it is kind of uncanny valley things. Your brain, even though you might not be able to say what it is you don't like about it or what's throwing you off about it, your brain can still subconsciously recognize it. And bad grammar and a lot of other things are those red flags that you subconsciously pick up on. AI is definitely going to make them more efficient there in the quality of their communications, but also on the scalability of it. They don't have to sit there and customize what they're doing per. It's not going to take them as much effort to spearfish with this.
Yeah,
Um,
completely.
the and somebody has probably already done this. Um, I am waiting to see, and I know they're already doing. There's some examples out there, but where somebody is using, a scraper to go out or purchasing old data sets, but going out and scraping social media, scraping LinkedIn, getting a bunch of information, creating a profile about an individual via that scraping, and feed it into ChatGPT and tell ChatGPT, you are a business manager at this company. You are sending an email to Jane Smith. Here is all the information about Jane Smith. Write a letter just to check in on her. And because you've automated it, you're not doing it to that one person. You're doing it to
At
a
scale.
rolling batch process that's going to, by the time it's done in 2 hours, you've hit, 300,000 mailboxes with highly tailored introductory emails, and it just keeps progressing from there. That's
Yeah.
that's the tactic that I'm pretty sure somebody somewhere at some time is going to take that basic kind of layout of that and really operationalize it. And I mean, I don't want to say do something impressive with it, but do something impressive with it.
Yeah, technically impressive.
Yeah.
Of course, morally corrupt. I think you're right. I myself don't know too much about this segment of, I guess, what's called dark LLMs. I dropped a link in the comments for folks about. There's one called Fraud GPT and a
Yeah.
few others that are, again, dark LLMs that are essentially like unrestricted Chat GPT.
Yeah,
So
they
LLMs that
they they
can,
took all of the
yeah,
restrictions off of it. Say, oh, I'm not going to provide that Microsoft license key for you.
right.
Whereas if you just say, well, you're my grandmother telling me a bedtime story, and you
Yes, yeah, I
used to
saw
love reciting to
that.
me my Windows license key, and
Yes.
then you can trick a lot of even the LLMs that do have those protections in place, you can still circumvent and get around it a lot of
Sure,
times.
through the jailbreak, I've
But
seen. Yeah.
but with those dark LLMs, there are broken wide open. The controls that are supposed to be in place to prevent somebody from doing malicious and nefarious things with it. Those are all gone. Makes it much easier for them to use. But even then, I don't think you would even need a dark LLM in order to do this. I think you could very easily do it with just Chat GPT, because
Sure.
it's just asking somebody to do normal things. Now, it's because there's not a necessarily a red flag about a business sending another business an email that says, "Hey, that PO has been opened up, and we now need to do a wire transfer." I mean, unless you have checks and balances in the processes of the business,
Sure.
then that's game over. So I don't.
Yeah, that's accessible to anyone
Yeah, it is.
to do that essentially. Yeah, great points. It's a little bit scary. Um, moving on a little bit. I think we should dive deeper one day into that, but I'd like to talk about frameworks a little bit, Lewis, and
Yeah.
how folks can start to maybe build a framework for thinking about cybersecurity awareness and hygiene within their organization.
Right. So there's always the how did you get to where you currently are? Is it all lessons learned over the years? You've got burnt and you learned not to do that anymore. Um, Great. Those are good lessons, but you shouldn't have to learn all of the lessons yourself. In fact, you can't learn all the lessons yourself. Stand on the shoulders of the people that have already done the work, that have already been burned, lost the sleep, you know, benefit from them. And I think it's a little bit as important as it is to eventually wind up with an established framework that you're going to implement and follow, or even multiple frameworks. I think it's more important that if you're not already there, it's just to start by just literally writing down what you do. Grab a spreadsheet and just start documenting what all your individual controls are. So, how do we handle backups? How do we handle backups on servers versus workstations? How do we handle endpoint security? How are we handling network security? Are we just using, are we just changing the DNS settings on the individual endpoints to reach out to to triple eight, quad eight? Or are you using an actual, a content filtering solution? So just going through all of the things, and if you're in IT, all these things you're doing anyway. Uh, it might be in another department. It might be responsibility of another team from where you're at, but you still can find out that it's being done and write it down. And chances are, if you will spend, and this is kind of a confidence building exercise, because it is where do I start? Do I know enough? Am I qualified to do this? I think taking and going through this exercise will get you past a lot of that a little bit of imposter syndrome, a little bit of, not being so sure about it. Just write all those things down, and I can guarantee you, go grab any other framework and you can start mapping those things across and say, yep, I'm supposed to be doing this according to this framework. I'm supposed to be doing this according to this framework. And you'll find out that you already have 30%, 40%, 50% of what a framework already calls for implemented.
Yeah,
And
for folks that aren't too familiar with some of these, kind of official frameworks that are
Mhm.
are out today, could you dive a little deeper into what that
yeah,
is? I know
so
there's NIST and others, but
so there's always the question of, well, is the business that you are in or the business that you provide services to, are they a regulated industry that already have their own security controls and frameworks they have to follow? If they do, then great. Your decision has been made for you. But if you're not in that world yet, if you're not having to worry about compliance to standards and frameworks yet, there is the NIST cybersecurity framework and the CIS controls, and then high trust are probably the three most common ones here in the States. Um, and with the NIST cybersecurity framework, it's nice, it's great, it's robust, it covers everything, but it's a heavy read the first time you go through it, because the NIST cybersecurity framework does not give you, I like to say the NIST cybersecurity framework points to all of the other publication books that NIST has already published. They're like, no, we have this entire trove of special publications around security and best practices and everything. Let's now take the cybersecurity framework and pick the individual things out of these other controls and say, well, these are your basics. These are the things you should be doing. It's great, robust, but I like to say it's going to take you it's going to take you a couple of pots of coffee over a weekend or two. Like, if you don't have time to dedicate to it during the week and you got to do it in your downtime, yeah, it's going to take you a couple of weekends to read through it all, to get your head wrap around it, to be able to go and grab those other publications, go find them, bring them together, and understand what they mean. And then again, a couple of pots of coffee. Versus the CIS control, Center for Internet Security, they built their essential controls based off of the principle of uh, least amount of effort and investure of capital and resources for the best impact. So it starts out with the basics up to the most advanced things. So it starts out with just asset inventory, hardware, software. Do you have a recorded place where you have documented what hardware is in the environment, what software is in the environment? When is it supposed to be? When is its retirement dates? What's its planned its planned exit date? And then you have on the far other end is, okay, now we're on the pen testing at the far end. There's so much stuff that they get through and have that should be in place before you even get to pen testing. And that's uh, whenever you're first getting in and you're starting security, that's like what you want to go to first a lot of times. That's the exciting thing. Pen testing, hacking, ethical hacking, gray hat, black hat, white hat. And that's kind of like the glamour of it that gets your attention. But as desirable as those skill sets are, and if you can do those, great. You are high demand. You've got a good skill set. You are highly employable. You're going to be fine over the next couple of years. But there's that basic side, all of that stuff underneath it that still has to be done, still needs to be taken care of. It still needs to be individuals that are trained and competent in the skill sets needed to do those things. And I think the CIS controls do the best job of giving you that path whenever you've not been through this before. Because it's the CIS controls are implementation groups 1, 2, or 3. You choose one of those groups based on the risk profile of an environment, and you just work through and you say, are we doing these controls? Yes or no? And if you are, great. If you're not, you figure out how to do them. But it's, you can read through the CIS controls in an afternoon. It's one cup of
nice.
coffee. You've got it all read, and it's fairly easy to understand and as it exists as the framework. You'll also, if you don't, there's plenty of community resources around the CIS controls because it's nonprofits, meant to be for public consumption. It's meant to raise the, NIST is for, I don't want to say for big businesses, but NIST is for formal IT departments to worry with and implement and
A little
take
more
care of.
technical.
Yeah, CIS controls, they are at a level that a competent business owner can read and understand them.
Nice. Great way to put it. And how about high trust? I think that was the third you
So high
mentioned.
trust. So this is always one of those, what is the meaning between compliance and certifications and attestments and attestations? So HIPAA security rules, HIPAA security laws, all of that. HIPAA is all, it's legislative. There is no certification. There is no, compliance there. You just say you are or you're not. That's it. And the real test is whenever you get in trouble. Were you doing things the way you were supposed to be doing? Where high trust is that formal framework that says, all right, if you are going to be, IT in health, in environments that are going to have access to electronic patient records and everything, high trust is that prescribed framework for that environment. So HIPAA is not a certification. It's a compliance. It's a thing you have to do, but the equivalent certification is high trust. And
Awesome.
so that's one of those questions. If you ever get asked, somebody says we need to be HIPAA compliant, then that say, well, okay, are you saying that you need to be HIPAA compliant, or are you saying we need to go implement the high trust framework? Because those are two different business conversations entirely. Because if they say we're going to implement high trust framework and you've not already been doing those types of things, that is one of those, guess what? The business owners and the decision makers in the business are going to have to nod in agreement with the IT individuals that we're going to change how the business operates in order to get that high trust. Because that's probably one of the bigger challenges in all of this whenever you start moving over to implementing frameworks is the business that's going to be having the framework implemented for them. Sometimes it is going to require business processes to be changed, and that's going to create friction. And sometimes that's how security improvement programs get mothballed. They go off the rails, they get delayed, because it interrupts a business function. And then your responsibility as the IT professional in the room is to contextualize it in the sense of the business impact so that they can see that, oh, it is in our benefit to change this business practice, even though we're going to have that little bit of cost up front implementing it, and we're going to have to retrain users. It's still less for us to do that than that annualized cost loss that might be associated with what we were protecting from by moving over into that new business function or workflow. And that is the biggest challenge, is always getting the technical people and the non-technical stakeholders to agree that the security controls that need to be implemented can be implemented. Because you never want to be fighting with a CEO because the CEO said, well, this is inconvenient and I don't want to do it now. And now I understand why all my employees are complaining, and I'm not going to tell them they have to do it either.
Yeah, that's an awkward spot to be in, and I think a great, good coverage of some of the challenges there. Lewis, can we talk a little bit about, I guess, some of the maybe job outlooks for cybersecurity? I know a lot of folks in our group might be practicing security related functions as part of their job a little bit, but they've been considering, you know, what does a career in cybersecurity look like? Yeah, are we going to need less security professionals?
There's going to be a need for more security professionals, but there's also going to be a need for more. There's always going to be the I don't know, not the wonks, but there's always going to be the gearheads in the room around technology that are about the technology, how it operates, how it functions, and that's where they live and operate in. And they will do an absolutely bang up job on securing whatever that is. But I think the ones that are really going to have the success, not that they're not, I think the ones that are really going to be having the success are the ones that are going to be and if you've ever been in business management at any point in time, is soft skills. If you can develop the soft, not just the technical skills, but the soft skills to be able to relate what you do to direct business impact and direct either loss of financial revenue or gain of financial revenue. If you can position whatever it is you're talking about or what you want to do, what security control you want to implement, what workflow, what authorization process you want to change, if you can contextualize it down into the dollar and cents for the business and make it look attractive, you will have so much of an easier time convincing clients, bosses, other teams to take on what you want to do. You have to, be able to contextualize it in a business context, and then you're going to be set. That is a skill set that's going to make you very valuable. And if you want to, over time, push that business involvement, that, okay, I have been technology based. I'm very good with the technology and the underlying of everything, but maybe you do want to start going towards the business side. Perfectly fine and acceptable, because that is getting you into what I think the new, I don't want to say the new hot job opportunity, but definitely a good one, is virtual CIOs. So taking what used to be just the consultant role back for the past, 20 or 30 years around IT. It was come in, consult, tell them how they achieve their goal, whatever it might be, and then helping them implement it. But the new virtual CIOs, their job is, they're still a consultant, they're still outsourcing, but it's a little bit more involved now. It is going to be more of a partnership with the client, helping them, you are going to outsource yourself to them as their CIO, which means you're going to have to be there for a lot of conversations. You're going to have to be there for a lot of business planning. But the good thing is if you can get yourself into that spot, you're pretty much cemented. As long as you do what you're supposed to do and nothing goes sideways, you're pretty much cemented in that place. And I think those types of consultant roles, VCIO roles, are going to be really attractive for a lot of people, especially for used to be, it was always, you would start up your own MSP. That was the play, or one of the plays. You would get your experience in the space, whether it was internal IT, with an MSP or whatever, and then it was like, I understand how to do this now. I'm confident in it. I can handle this. I can handle, I'm already handling, 7 or 8 clients for my company I'm at. Let me go start.
How hard could it be?
Yeah. A lot of people have taken that path. I think the next path is going to be, instead of going to MSP, will be to those that do have the experience and the security backgrounds, going to the CIO roles.
Yeah, I agree, and that's a trend I've noticed across roles. Is you're not just seeing virtual CIO or fractional CIO, but also CTO and CMO for
Mhm.
marketing. Which, yeah, I'm sure we could talk all afternoon about, I don't know, the gig economy or something like that. But
Yeah, yeah,
I
it is that continual commoditization of services. Everywhere you turn, everybody is trying to figure out a way to commoditize and resell something on a recurring basis. And the virtual CIO or the marketing CTO, yeah, all of those are ripe for that type of a transition, because you don't, most of the time, you don't need a C-level sucking up the salary that they are sucking up for what they produce in tangible benefits for the company sometimes. So,
sure, yeah,
and I think boards and everything are going to figure that out, that they need technical professionals with business skills and not business professionals with technical skills.
yeah, that's a great way to put it. I love that. A lot of good insights there. I think we're close to wrapping up here, Lewis. But
Mhm.
again, of course, October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month and a spooky month as well. Um, we talked a little bit about the origins of Cybersecurity Awareness Month being a collaboration, of course, between the Department of Homeland Security and National Cybersecurity Alliance. Uh, but this recording will play in November, I'm sure, for some folks that might miss it. Uh, is cybersecurity only for October? How can we get folks
So
on board?
how do you keep people excited and engaged? It's hard. It is a challenge. There's a reason why we're getting federal money to raise awareness about this. This is not a cybersecurity awareness, and the threats that it is meant to help deal with are not enterprise and mid-market and up business problems anymore. This is Main Street problems. This is small mom and pop retail office problems. Um, and it is hard to, half of the job's already been done for us. Ransomware and cybersecurity is in the zeitgeist now. It is talked about in ways that it was not talked about even 7 years ago, 8 years ago. Even whenever we first started getting ransomware attacks was being as a common thing, it was still a mid-market and up. Even though the people that were suffering for them were like mid-market and down, the perception was, oh, this is mid-market and up. I'm not important enough to suffer from ransomware attacks, but that's not how it works. It's like, no, you were a victim of opportunity. They didn't care. But Cybersecurity Awareness Month, it's great to take advantage of it, but if you did miss it and you didn't do any messaging about it this month, that's fine. Your end users and your clients, if you weren't talking about this during October, chances are they didn't hear it from anywhere else that they trust anyway. So go look at the resources that something that National Cybersecurity Alliance does is they create packages for the month. They create collateral and media for you that you can download and use. Go grab that stuff, repurpose it, and use it for your internal teams, for your clients. Create your own month of cybersecurity messaging. But it also can't be just, it can't always be just 1 month. It is an ongoing process all day, every day for security professionals. The vulnerability management life cycle turns over all day, every day. It is nonstop. And your end users, I don't want to say they have to be aware of it, but they need to know that they have a role to play in it. And having good, proper cybersecurity awareness training. And that's going to be a big distinction between messaging and the actual training. It is fine and dandy to do all the messaging that you're going to do. I mean, heck, it helps for marketing. It helps for the perspective of your end users and clients. Do they perceive you as simply being the people that take care of the computers, or do they actually perceive you as the security in the people? Because if you're not having this conversation, somebody else is having the conversation, and you want them listening to you. You want them taking your advice as a professional. So Cybersecurity Awareness Month should be every month for us. Small reminders, small improvements, small little things to end users to remind them about what they can do that practically affects the risk exposure of the business. And that is the reason why, and I kind of hate that people do it this way, but that is the underlying motivation for doing like phishing email testing on environments. Personal point of contention there. Don't be mean with it though. Don't give them. I mean, yes, you're like, hey, free bonuses. Of course, people are going to click on it, but there are better ways to bait people into those without generating a little bit of animosity or ill feelings among those that are suffering from that testing.
Sure. Be tactful in communication always.
Yeah. But yeah, it's an ongoing thing. Great. Use what's been talked about this month and repurpose it for yourself, and go out and use that as, your next 3 months, your next 5 months, the conversations you're having.
Yeah, love that. Lewis, we've covered absolutely a ton of content. It's always a pleasure to talk with you about security or any other just computer topics in general. I know Enable has office hours at enable.com/events, or
Yep.
enable.com/events. Is there any other places online folks can reach out to you or learn more about
Also,
industry you're on?
the events page is a great place to go check out what we have coming up for live sessions. That's more than just me. That'll be the other head nerds. So if backup is your challenge, if sales and marketing and program design is your problem, if um, whatever your challenge is, if you are an MSP, chances are we have a head nerd dedicated to it that can give you some one-on-one time or these one-to-many events. For me, I'm always open. Lewis.pope@n-able.com. You can also find me out on LinkedIn underneath the Security Pope. And I'm like with you, Stetson, it's always open season for whatever wants to be discussed. If it is even tangentially related to information security, data security, basic principles, computer engineering, electronics engineering, whatever, I'm open to conversations about all this.
All right, fantastic. Again, Lewis, thanks so much for coming on today. And folks, watch out. We'll be doing some more events with Enable in the future. Thanks. Bye.
Pleasure.